Let me just say, first of all, it's good to be here. Thank you all for taking the time to join. It's good to see some familiar faces out there. I see Liza Finkelstein. I see Shay Gregory, who was a colleague of mine back at Horace Mann in Oakland. I think it was my second year in Oakland. We came together to teach, put in a lot of good work for kids, and some others in here that I see and have known throughout the years. I'm very honored to have you spend your time. I know time is our most precious resource, and I don't take it lightly. So I am hopeful that the purpose of this is a nuts and bolts type workshop. This isn't a, this is like, what can I do? And it may be a little challenging, and I'm not really sparing the feelings much on this, so buckle up your seatbelt a little bit. And one last thing I should clarify: with NAACP, we submitted a administrative petition. It wasn't a lawsuit. Administrative petition sets the record straight so that there could be groundwork for potentially other actions down the road, but hopefully that's not even necessary. But we can now say you didn't know. That means you can't say you didn't know because we had this petition with a statement of facts and it's a legal term. So I just need to clarify that. Now, having said that, let's go get it. So the session, this workshop is about change management, which is, and Julia, I'm going to assume that you'll let people into the chat room. I see them popping up on the screen. I'm not going to worry about that.
On it.
This is not the sexy topic. Change management is not the thing that you wake up in the morning thinking, man, I'm going to get some change management today. It's not that. But as been my experience, this is the thing. And so if we can leave here today with a very clear mindset around what's needed, what has to be done internally for ourselves, as well as to the people that we're leading, and to be able to think through it strategically, you'll have been successful. All right, let's go. Hey, Ty, I see you out there. Sound up, deck up. All right, here we go. Now, there will be one, maybe two breakout sessions, definitely one. It depends on time and how it's flowing. And also, but I would just recommend taking notes. Just if there's something that you see that you want to jot down, you can ping me later. I'll make the deck available. Julia, you can send it to folks at your leisure. It's fine with me. It's all open source to me. You can share it. And yeah, that's it. That's it. And also use the chat. I actually am paying attention to the chat because there'll be some things where I'm asking you for feedback on what your thoughts are or what your choices that you're going to make. And I'm actually going to monitor that. So feel free to put your thoughts in there, as well as take notes, and then, of course, engage in the breakout session. All right, here we go. Let's go. So you saw the topic, change management, right? Help wanted. Help wanted. By the way, I'm not the best social media person. Every now and then I go in spurts on Twitter. I may not say anything for a month, but then you get like 10 in a row. That's kind of my personality type. So, but there's the stuff. But I work with the Oakland and the California NAACP on the education committees, and as well as a co-founder, FULCRUM, my partner Liza Finkelstein, and a longtime educator in Oakland, and then before that in South Carolina as teacher and administrator. Work for the Department of Juvenile Justice, et cetera, and off we go. Change managers. So do you consider yourself a change manager? I'm just asking. Because what I found is whether we are whether we want to be or not. If you're in charge of shifting literacy in terms of practices in a building or in a classroom or in a school system or district or network, whatever, you're a change manager for literacy instruction. The question is, are we effective change managers, both for ourselves and for others? And so I'm going to kind of help frame what that's all about and walk through it today. Okay, usually when we think about change and successful change management, we think in these terms. We think very binary. We say, we're trying to blank or get people to move from place X to place Y. That's change. That's what most of us think is change. But remember, we're talking about literacy instruction in schools, complex systems. You could probably put your own word in that blank. I mean, I listed some here, encouraging people to move from here or there, or inspiring, or whatever your frame of reference is. But that's very reductive, and I want us to actually kind of move to this, because this is the reality. Successful change management is not just getting people to move. it's also getting them to be able to move with these things. I'm not going to read the list there, but you see it. And especially the one down here that says without turning your school into a battleground, because it can become that with the different philosophies, ideologies, or whatever. How can we get people to move and still have tread on the tires to be able to sustain the work long term? And then once you leave, the change actually sticks. That's what we're trying to get at. When I'm talking about change management, I mean that. It's not just moving people. It's moving people and get them there with a certain mindset, energy level, and willingness to proceed and carry it on with or without you. Now, a little quick history lesson, won't take long. Because that last slide, this is an example of that. So years ago, 2000, OUSD switched to a structured literacy curriculum. It's the thing that there's this wave of the science of reading now, right? So they moved to a curriculum that was quote unquote science of reading. It had all the components, had phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, had sections by color in the book. And there was a man named Dennis Chaconis, who I remember sitting and talking with him at Cato's one day. We were talking about this. He was a native of Oakland, Latino man, and he was determined to improve student achievements. We said, we're going to do this. We're just going to do it. And people are going to get on board, and it just is what it is. And he did it. For 3 years, he was here. Then, some financial stuff that happened, and he had to leave. Just the system was inefficient. But he put in place something, and for 7 years in a row, there was great improvement. Fastest improvement in California among urban districts. Institutional memory is so soft nowadays, we don't even remember this stuff. But there was growth. And some people will say, wow, that's what you got to do. Just make them do it. Look at what Dennis Chaconis did. But it lacked buy-in. Those of you who were in Oakland back then, remember those would be called the open court wars. Literally, people they were coming into the classrooms and checking on them, and they were called the police by the teacher. Oh, here comes the open court police. There was no buy-in from many people. They didn't know why they were doing it. Nobody made the case. Or if they did, nobody got the memo about the case. And the implementation was spotty at best. But even still, we made growth. And folks would say, hey, it was worth it. Well, after a while, it was thrown out because the change was never internalized. Real change management means it's internalized. And so we switched back. We went all the way back to balanced literacy framework. It was the trendy thing. It's a whole language derivative. You all, I'm sure you're familiar with the systems, the 3 queuing system and all the rest. And out went open court, in came units of study. Lucy Calkins was, that was what was trending at that time. And what happened, there was no foundational skills section. We threw out the green part. And 10 years later, Oakland has 11 of the 75 lowest schools in California for 3rd grade reading. And nobody even remembers this, seems like. Nobody. And now the little X is named, you're here type thing. Now the school system is saying, hey, wait a second, that's not good. Maybe we should go back and use some research-based stuff again. Let's go back to a structured curriculum. Oh, we'll do this pilot. We'll have foundational skills. And so now it's moving back. And people say, well, that's just a pendulum swing. There are these pendulum swings. And so my first offering to you is that it's not a pendulum swing. The science is the science. The evidence is the evidence, and the research is the research. The only pendulum is that we get desperate enough at times to kind of force things in, and we don't really apply good change management. The fact that we need change, we are the pendulum. The research has not changed. If we want to sustain things, it's not about switching from this to that. It's, are there people who are willing to take up the lead and say, I'm going to do this the right way? Yes, there is a right way. Yes. As shown by examples around the country of people who've done it the right way and gotten sustainable results for kids and teachers and families and communities. So, and listen, I fully admit I may have thought like this at one point, but I've evolved and grown, and I realize that we sometimes rationalize poor change management. And we say, well, I gotta have urgency. You know, the babies. We gotta save the kids. We gotta do this, we gotta do that. So I'm not gonna take the time to do this right. I'm not gonna make the case. I'm not going to fill in the blank. But that's a losing proposition for kids. So in Chaconis's example, now to have 11 of the lowest 75 in the state of California, LA Unified only has 4 or 5. And they have, you know, magnitude and multitude more schools than we do. By the way, the other district that has quite a few is West Contra Costa, some of you folks from Richmond, my hometown. A recipe for ongoing cynicism. I'll explain more about that later. And also failure to have good change management. It's just a failure of leadership. Listen, I said this is not going to be comfortable at times. I'm not trying to blame people and point fingers. I'm just going to lay it out there in love, okay? So shorthand, you know, as we're experiencing this, shorthands, when we think about change management, this is the bumper sticker. We think that people are saying, well, you want me to change? If I agree to change, what does that mean for me? Or what does that mean for my school? What does that mean for what? This is the way that we often think about it, right? That people are wrestling with this kind of question. And in reality, we're more complex than that. And instead of think of it like this, I want today to focus on the longhand version, which is this. If I agree to change, you see it right there. That's really what people have to wrestle with. It's the longhand version, which doesn't really get laid out in a PD session on a Wednesday. This is something that people experience and then decide whether or not they want to change. And then what does it mean for, so let me build that out. If I agree to change, what does that mean for my past efforts? I spent 20 years in the classroom. I spent 10 years in the classroom. Did I just waste my time? And that can produce shame. So you talking about change management that will mitigate this or address this internal dialogue with people. What does it mean for my credibility? I'm a chief academic officer. And just 2 years ago, I was talking about balanced literacy and saying why we need to, you know, have better implementation of Lucy Calkins' Readers and Writers Workshop. If they find out now that I'm switching, what does that mean for my position, my status, my respect? As a principal, as a coach, how are the parents going to view me? If I switch now, all of a sudden, what does it mean? These are real questions. These are the questions that people really have to be helped to overcome. What about my relationships? Many of us in our schools are not just places of education, they're also places of relationship. We protest together, we study together, we work and collaborate together. And if I deviate from the accepted dogma of my school, the culture that we have built there, and our understandings about what good reading instruction is, there's going to be a sense of loss and grief. I may even lose some friends. And then lastly, my time and peace. Look, I know what I'm doing. I'm good at it. It takes time to get this way. I'm in 15 years. And if you want me to change, it's going to disrupt my peace of mind and my time. I got to study again. I got to do all these things again. Can you help me get through that fear, that anger? Also in time, I had to put this up here really quickly. School districts don't give much time to prepare. They really don't. So here's just a quick chart of prep time for elementary students. You look at Chicago, 300 minutes, 50 minutes a day, or 60 minutes a day. Oakland Unified, 100 for everything. West Contra Costa, 100 for everything. Math, science, social studies, English language arts, 100 minutes. Then stop playing. Stop playing. So you have to be able to help people navigate the time element of it, because time is slim to none. And I know every district is different. You can match up the preparation time with the different curricula they have. Very few actually adopt curricula across the board and say, how much time does it take to do this thing? Let's add it all up and make sure that fits in our prep time. They don't do that. So let's keep it moving. Again, again, what I want us to do is really start off by just saying that change management is critical, because if we don't do it, even if we rationalize it away as being urgent and, we love the kids and I'm going to be the next Marva Collins and all of the rest, if we don't have good change management, ultimately it's a reflection on us. And that second one about cynicism is real. So who are we trying to change? Ourselves. And let's take a real look at education. So the National Center for Education and Statistics, they put out information on a regular basis. And the average teacher across the country is about 42 years old, right? About 42. And they're more than likely a woman. And of course, this isn't everybody. Obviously, I don't fit this, right? I wish I was 42 now, and I'm not a woman, as you can see by my handle there. And so, and then 80% are white. And we talk about social justice, and we talk about equity and race and class. Most of our teachers are white women who have been married or are married, have their own kids, and they've been in the classroom for a while. Now you say, Kareem, why is this important? Because you got to know who you're talking to. Every building is different, but I don't make the same case to my mother as I make to my brother. I don't make it to the same way to my son as I do to my cousin. It just, you have to know your audience. Everyone's context and building and department is going to be different. But with this, we have to start wrestling with our own inner dialogue and our own issues. Why should I, as a Black man, have to convince these white women to change? I've actually said that to myself as a school principal. The babies need to learn to read. They're mostly Black and brown, and here I am trying to convince a room full of white women that that they should be doing what I already think they should be doing. And I had to check myself. Because if you are in a position of leadership, whether it's in the classroom or at the school building, your audience is your audience. And we have to make sure that we're speaking to our audience in a way they can hear, in a way that they deserve to be spoken to, with love. And it all comes back to this. I can get as indignant as I want to, but at the end of the day, if my management isn't on point, then this is what's going to happen. And I can mask my lack of poor change management by claiming urgency. Oftentimes we don't know what to do. We claim urgency. They're going to do it because I'm in charge. Okay, all right. Good luck with that. And as someone said in the chat earlier, in the opening plenary, shaming is not a change strategy. It's just not. I can guilt you all I want to, but at the end of the day, you got your own kids, your own life, and you have to wrestle with your own challenges. A change management strategy is something that's going to be sustainable whether you're there or not. That's why shame doesn't work. As soon as you leave, the shame is gone. Or it may linger, but my practice goes back to being what it was. So we're looking at how can we shift things in a way that people will internalize it. Okay, now, some of you may have seen this before, I don't know, but when we're talking about change, there are some things that have to be in place. Some of the things are very technical, very specific. You can check a box or have a checklist. Others, they're more in the heart and mind. And so I'm gonna go over those two groups and we'll dig into this a little bit. Have you ever had an initiative that was begun in your building or in your district and one of these things was missing? I can't tell you that, the graveyard of initiatives that have come and gone since I've been in education. With all the best intentions, with all the right language and all of this and that, but the vision, I never, you got to have these things. And if you don't have these things, the result is on the right there. And these are the things that we're trying to avoid in our buildings. what are we doing again? Why is that? Confusion, the stress, of the anxiousness that comes from the reality that I didn't learn this stuff in graduate school. Nobody taught me. The professional development has been on Lucy Carken's units of study for the last 6 years. I never even learned what phonemic awareness was when I was in college. At least I don't remember it. So we have to, skills and vision, all these things matter as we are understanding how to manage change. So we're going to spend, and this is one of the few times, matter of fact, this may be the only breakout we have that's outside of this room. Instead, we'll just kind of doing a chat from here on out. But which of these components do you feel is the most detrimental to the change process? Which, if we're missing what? What's the killer? Which is the death knell? And which one is most commonly missing in your experience when people are trying to, or systems are trying to create change? And you could name it by these things here on the right, the results. Well, usually what's the killer is a confusion, or really what's the killer is the false starts. Or you can name it by the lack of what should be going in this box. But two things in the breakout session, each person will go around. And Julie, I'll ask that you put people in those breakout rooms in a second. But the first thing, what component here, if it's missing, is the most detrimental to the change process? Which one? And then secondly, what's usually missing? What's most commonly not there? All right. And we'll have 8 minutes, and we'll have everybody come back here, and then we'll keep it moving. Julie, would you mind sending folks off?
No problem. Let me do that right now. So everybody should see a little window pop up that's saying that says the host is inviting you to join a breakout room. So please go ahead and click on that so you can join your breakout room.
And Julia will be able to put the prompts up there for them.
Yep, I will do that right now. I'm going to put the prompt in the chat.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you all. See you back here in 8 minutes.
Kareem, can you share that slide again with the question, please?
Absolutely. Let me know when you got it.
Kareem, I'm going to send a list of the, oh, can you put that back up? I want to send people the list in case they don't have the slide. I don't know if anybody can see the slide in their breakout rooms so that they know which ones to choose from. Okay, I got it. Thanks, Kareem.
All right, I'm heading off to room 2.
Shaheen, Todd, Jeanette, Winfred, Lori, and Kathleen. Did you get an invitation to a breakout room?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Did you join?
No.
Got it. Okay, no problem. Just wanted to make sure that.
I tell you what is my problem. I am bad with computer. I touch something, I cannot get back in.
I
why
understand.
I'm doing the thing.
Oh, you're Sanam's mom.
I am Sanam's mom.
So
Wonderful.
nice to meet you. Thank you.
And I really love this session.
I'm so glad. He's great. Okay, feel free to hang out here. No pressure. Anybody else, if you need me to assign you to a breakout room or anything like that, just let me know. If not, you're welcome to hang out here.
What do they do in the breakout room?
They're going to talk to each other in small groups.
And in a small group.
Yeah, and I will end the breakout sessions. And so if you do go to one, it will send you back automatically. So you won't have to do anything if you want to try it.
Sorry, there wasn't anybody in my breakout room. I felt
Oh, let me assign you to another one. Sorry about that. I'm just going through the list. I'm like, oh, which one were you in before?
I think 6.
Oh, 6, right. Okay, let me put you in another one. 1 second. Hi, Kim. Welcome. We are in breakout rooms right now, so I'm going to send you to a breakout room.
No need to send me. I'll just wait, okay, till you come
Okay.
back.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Hi, Sarah. Did you just enter? Oh, we lost you. Let me know. Hi, Anna. Welcome. We're in breakout rooms right now, so I'm going to assign you to one, okay?
Thank you.
Hi, Alicia. Welcome. We're in breakout room, so I'm going to assign you to one.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
A lot of good conversations happening. Just came from the breakout rooms and they're digging into it. It's inspiring to see and hear.
Yeah, this is great.
Julia, how are we doing on time?
We're pretty much at 8 minutes. Should I send everybody a 1-minute warning? Okay.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta get going again.
Okay, I'll bring them back.
Yeah, ain't come back.
Closing them. Got about 50 seconds till it will close all of them. Kareem, you want to start sharing your screen again so people can look at that slide?
Yeah, sure. Julia, just let me know when we're ready and I'll take off. We're ready to rock and roll.
Five more seconds. And it looks like everybody should be back. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. So listen, I heard some great conversations happening and I heard cases being made for each of these. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was a little surprised. I heard it all. I heard it all. Every context is different. But what I want to do, any of these can be a killer. But there's two distinct different categories when you're talking about change management. I want to get into that a little bit. So of all the ones that are here, you can have a vision or a false start or a skills deficit or lack of resources, and you can still get started. Most initiatives, the vision hasn't been laid out, or if it is, it hasn't been done consistently over time. Most time you start, people don't have the skills. The resources, you know how schools are, the resources, half of them won't be there, period. We just know. And an action plan, you know, it changes with the wind if there is one at all, but we get started. But with the incentives, if the why isn't there, then you get the resistance. And when there's resistance, that means it's not moving. That means you can't start. Now, sometimes that can be a good thing because maybe you shouldn't start until you're ready, until you've got these other ducks in a row. Be that as it may, I want to lift this up a little bit. So why is there resistance? You know, instead of like someone said in the chat, shame is not a strategy. You're asking people, if I'm a teacher, you're asking me to risk all these things, all that we talked about, all these things, and my cloak of assurance, meaning I know what I'm doing, I got this, I know my program, I know what to do. I can almost do it on autopilot. And I'm pretty confident that what I'm doing is the right thing. That's a cloak of assurance, peace of mind. And you're asking me to give up my time. And I don't even believe in this stuff. I might not even be convinced that this move, the shift you're making is the right thing to do. And so I'd like for you to think about it like this. Now, these are not the only two dimensions, but this will kind of help frame kind of what change managers have to speak to. You got to really get into the why, the incentives. Why are people doing what they're doing? And again, there are a lot of other dimensions than just these two, but if you put it on its grid, map it out with your school or your building or your district or your network or whatever, map it out. You've got some folks, you know, it's a calling, some it's a job. And this is not to disparage any of the four. You can do a great job sitting in either of these, but the messaging is different to each of these people. This is my job. This is what I'm doing. This, I get paid. I got a contract. This is what I do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. There's nothing wrong with that. To each his own. For some, it's a social cause. That's why the activities of the staff room is, some people go in the staff room, some people don't. For some, if it's a calling, you may not see them. They're going to come in, do what they have to do. You can barely get them to join the meeting, but they can teach their butt off the time. And I've at different stages of my life, I've been in each of these four. It's true. And so no one is all one or anything, but you have to kind of map things out, because change managers, if they're effective, have to be able to speak to each of these quadrants. And it could be multiple things within each person, but your approach will be dictated by who your audience is. So for example, if I need to give a reassurance of safety, listen, you're going to try this. I know it's risky. I know you may not have the skill. I'm not going to fire you after this. I'm going to give you all the support in the world. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to that bottom left. Look, man, your job is not, I want you working hard. That's all I ask. I want you to take that leap. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I'm not trying to get you. Or someone who can connect it to a larger social justice movement. That's that lower right-hand corner. They just want to know they're part of the bigger movement for social justice. Okay, fine. Change managers have to be able to speak to each of those, which means in a building, you're going to have to speak to all of them differently, strategically, at different points. Maybe it's a small group, maybe it's one-on-one, maybe it's in a PD with everybody, but you got to hit all of these. So that's the first thing I'll give you, to kind of map out the purpose and the sense of belonging so that you can tailor your message. Now, who am I going to send off to the PD in a different state to go watch this other school do it and then come back and report out and try to get people on board? I'm going to send that upper right-hand corner, folks. And all that we're talking about happens in a circle of trust. And this is so often overlooked. This isn't on the chart. Everything that we talk about, all these issues, they're in this circle. With all those things that we talked about, people, those dynamics that are at play within people, the sense of loss or assurance or the loss of time and all those things, all that has to happen within the circle. So how are we going to develop trust within our folks? And on top of that, it's very likely, and your school may be different. Your school may have it all together. Your network, your district, your school system, none of these, you got it all together. But most schools are sloppy. They're messy. Most school systems, it's just tough. It's just a reality. It's a tough environment at times. And so you have to manage change and understand that many of these things will be true. Likely, when you start off that first year, it's going to be tough because of the uptake in skills and because of it just may be a dip. You got folks who go off in their room by themselves and teach, like they're going to want to do their thing. New people after year 2 or year 3, they're not going to know what you were talking about 2 or 3 years ago. And the people who had the messaging initially will likely be gone. Right? So you understand this. So it's likely that many of these things will be the case. And here's something else. The world does not owe us understanding. Few will understand our context and sacrifice. And that is key. That you're asking people to do something. Well, yes, you can give them an award. You can give them a pat on the back. You can give them a thank you in the PD. You can lift them up as best you can. But the reality is, in terms of life, we only have so much time. Doing something new requires us to take a risk. And most will never even understand the risk. These are my 3 children. In the middle is my oldest daughter. She's Dr. Weaver now. On the left is my son, and on the right is my daughter. And in a blink of an eye, it went from that to this. In the blink of an eye, people are afraid to miss out on this. You may have me so spun up on your new initiative that I'll blink and I'll miss it. So as an effective change manager, you have to first have a good appreciation of the cost that you're asking people to pay. And to say, no, we're going to do this together. We're going to do it right. And I'm not going to let that happen to you. I'm going to give you all the support you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's get down to the nitty gritty. So there are some things that I consider, this is one bucket, right? Think of it as two buckets. One bucket are the must-haves. These are the technical things. You just, as a change manager, you got to handle this. These are the things that oftentimes they're not there. You got to fix it, as many of them as you can. You know, you got to help, you got to give them the PD, the on-demand PD, so they can get what they want when they want it, when they need it. Send them to letters training, send them to Orton Gillingham training, send them to foundation, send them, right? Let it be on demand, a la carte, so they can plug and play. Whatever the thing is, the resources, the books, the materials, et cetera, the action plan. When we're talking about being an effective change manager, this is the starting point. You say, well, Kareem, that's not going to happen. You know, I just showed you that these things, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, but you can do as well as you can. You can do it. In some schools, you do 5 or 6 of these and you know, you walk on water. And some, they need them all done. It just depends on the context, the history, et cetera. But you have to make a good faith effort to clear out as many of these things as possible. These can't be the reason that an initiative like literacy doesn't take root. And this is about efficiency and management and operations. And we're not talking about beliefs. We're not talking about the why or the vision. This is just the nuts and bolts. Because if you don't do these things, the frustration, the false starts, and the anxiety kicks in, and it can kill any initiative, and you'll lose credibility. So as you think about your own change management plan, and like I'll send this deck out to people, not a problem. What are the things on this list that need to be handled in your building? And I'm not talking about, when I say time to plan, as I was a principal, you know, our planning time was little to none. So I was creative. I had to be as creative as I could be. I stacked all the recesses on top of each other and said, use this, you know, I hired subs on certain days. I, you know, separated people by content areas sometimes. I brought outside, I do whatever I could do. Sometimes I just go take a class, just go plan. I got it today, go. Just go plan, just go. You're ready for next week, it's Friday, I got you, go. Whatever you have to do, whatever. So this stuff off the table, all right? Let's start with that. And then you get to the difference makers. And this is why we're here today. So change management, if you want to make a difference, that help wanted sign, if you want to be the type of change manager that you need to actually get to shift literacy practices, you got to get to these things. The other stuff has to be taken care of, yes, reasonably so, to meet their expectations as best you can. These things, this is where the rubber meets the road as a change manager. Why are we doing this? How long are we gonna do it for? How big of a, there are 5 cases that you have to make. 5. Have you made those cases? Have you made the moral case, the technical case, the evidentiary case, the trust case? So Kareem, what are you talking about? And it has to be ongoing. And this is where districts and systems oftentimes lose it. They do it initially, there's a rollout, and then they roll on. They never revisit the why. That opening PD, the vision, whatever it is, it sits on a coffee table somewhere. That has to be reinforced on a regular basis. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What are we doing? How long will we do it for? Just, you have to be able to make these cases. The technical case, and let me do it this way. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. When I was a principal of an elementary school in Oakland, it was a turnaround situation. And I'm hopeful this story will be illuminative of what I mean. I wanted to have everybody master their times tables and multiplication facts, just learn them. I had a computer set up. I did all the technical stuff, refurbished all the computers, made sure every class was wired, spent the money, had training set up, professional development, ran the logistics. I had the computer lab where the prep teachers run the administrative aspect of it. It was all set up. We're gonna have these in 10 minutes a day. That's all you gotta do. Just put them on the computer. You don't have to do anything. Just put them on the computer for 10 minutes a day. They will master their multiplication facts. The evidence says that this will happen, all right? I just knew I was doing big things. 2 months later, I had one teacher doing it consistently, semi-consistently, and they liked me. They were, you know, it was kind of a standoff, but they, for the most part, we had a respect for each other. And it wasn't getting done. I was furious. And these are mostly Black and brown babies. These are mostly white teachers with a few Latino teachers and one Black teacher. Men and women. They weren't doing it. I couldn't believe it. I felt disrespected. I felt like it was hard for me not to lose my religion. So before Christmas break, my union rep, Tom, Union Bulldog, good dude, trusted him. Tom was a Vietnam veteran, a good dude, a straight shooter. Came in there, and as everybody else was gone, he came in my office, and I told him, hey, Tom, man, he was the one person that was kind of doing it, because Tom was all about compliance, lower left-hand corner of that grid. He looked at me and he said, Weaver, you got to sell it. You didn't sell it. I said, wait a second, man. I laid it all out. I gave the professional development. I did said, all right. I'm telling you, you didn't sell it. And it stunned. I went back over the Christmas vacation and I thought about it and I wrestled with that. What he was saying is, you didn't make the case. And I'm not talking about a brochure. I mean, you didn't put your foot in it. You didn't really speak to their hearts and minds and get them on board. That is your job as a change manager. You got to sell it. Make the evidentiary case, the technical case, the institutional case. Sell this thing if you really believe it. I went back, made my PowerPoint deck. I put my heart and soul into it. I sold it. 3 months later, we had classroom where 90% of the kids had mastered the multiplication facts. They were doing it. Then I had to wrestle with this fact that I'm going to share with you. The realization was, with all my, social justice mindset, the problem was me. As a leader, I didn't sell it. I didn't do what needed to be done the way they needed to hear it. I was in my bag. You're going to do it because I'm going to present this wonderful thing, and you should recognize this, and you should see the wondrousness of what I'm present. It's about them. I wasn't talking to 42-year-old white women with kids and an ex-husband. I wasn't talking to the man whose partner was sick. And she had health issues. I wasn't talking to the teacher who was new and just trying to hang on. I didn't sell it. Okay, so this next thing that I'm offering you is that as change managers, we have to recognize that we are the fulcrum. We are the pivot point. We are the thing that is required to really make things go. We're the catalyst. All right, let me get back to sharing the screen. I'll try not to get too worked up. Okay. And whenever possible, just a little note here at the bottom, whenever possible, it's nice if you can allow other voices to sell it, other voices, because you don't want this to become a referendum on you. Remember, they kind of like me, but change has to happen whether they like you or not. So you may have to leverage other people and be honest about that. I'm the wrong messenger for now, till I work on these relationships. So what do I mean by institutional case? So literacy, hey, you know what? Did you know that the American Federation of Teachers, the second largest union in the country, this is Randy Weingarten, did you know that they said this? Now you're an institutionalist. Don't you want our schools to be successful? Don't you want public schools not to be dismantled? Whatever. If I'm talking to an institutionalist, I got to go get the information and speak to them, regardless of what my own beliefs might be. I got to speak to them. I mean, I'm not going to stick true to my core values, but I'm just saying I got to speak to them. If it's an evidentiary case they need to hear, we know what's the evidence, especially those people who are they're like driven lone wolves. Look, the evidence suggests that there's a podcast from Ed Trust where they go around the country and they look at the regular districts doing extraordinary things. They break it all down, person by person, the evidence. These are the ones that have closed the achievement gaps. I'm going to pay you extended contract, 3 hours. I want you to go listen and analyze this podcast and then report back to the group. That's me making a case to them through evidence. I'm sending them to the right path. And by the way, I love episode 4, C for Delaware, how they turned it around. There's also one in Butte, Montana that I love, and Jasper Tech or Lane, Oklahoma that I love, but this one is phenomenal. Second language learners, you know, African-American kid, lowest in the state, now kicking butt and taking names. But evidentiary case, the moral case. So some people, they don't want to hear all that. Some people, I start my PD with this. This is 1995 interview with Mother Jones, and she said this elimination of illiteracy is as serious an issue to our history as the abolition of slavery. Man, talk to me. You have to make the case and be willing to dig deep. You know, Google is your friend. Get the data, read the research reports, find examples of success, listen for the voices of moral clarity, bring somebody to your school. There's principals all around the country who ask me, hey, Kareem, can you come speak, open up this PD? I was just in Shoreline, Washington a month or 2 ago. They said, we're gonna start this new initiative for structural literacy. We want you to come. Hey, I'm there. Make the case. Now, but we're human. What if you don't make the case? An inability. I'm not talking about your want to, I'm talking about you may not have the skill developed to make these different cases to them. What is that a sign of? Just put that in the chat if you would. What do you think that's a sign of? My inability to do it, my inability as a leader to make the moral case or the evidentiary case or the trust case is a sign that what? Ten more seconds, please. And Julie, if you see things, you can shout them out. If they say, because I can't see the chat from here, but if you see it, by all means, shout out what they say. An inability to.
God, these are the skills I need to build in myself.
Okay.
You don't believe enough.
Oh, man.
It's a sign that you aren't listening to their common values. You don't believe it.
See, system leaders don't often hear this. This is us saying the quiet part out loud. We know this, but it's tough.
I don't.
True or not, Julie, those things you said, true or not, at a certain point, it becomes a functional reality. A functional reality. What they're putting in the chat, that whether it's true or not, you don't believe in us, it may not be true, but functionally it is true. And then in addition to that, that's an inability to, but then it leads to what? An inability to do that leads to what? What does it lead to? Conversely, now we're talking about an ability. What about an unwillingness to do it? What if you may have the skill, but for whatever reason, you're not willing to do it? Like for me, my unwillingness to really make the case was really about me. I was putting my own self in the way. I don't know how to say it. Self-righteous, self-indignant, self-something, some kind of self. It wasn't the right kind of self. It was too much of me. You know, sometimes you go to church, you hear people say, less of me, more of you, same type of thing. I had to get me out the way. So an unwillingness to do it is really a sign that, and you can fill in that blank on your own. And the last one here, true or not, if you're unwilling to do it, it becomes a functional reality. People say, well, it must not have been that important to them in the first place. Here we go. And this is one thing that, and you know, we can fold all those responses into this. If you're unwilling to make these cases, you will be perceived as just another bureaucrat. Okay, real time. Another paper pusher with a checklist. This is what they're trying to get me to do. All right, let me close my door. This will pass. And if you're unable to do it, if it's a matter of ability and skill, oh my gosh, this thing is not going to work. We're headed into the ditch. Do I really want to hitch my wagon to somebody and something that's clearly headed into the ditch? So part of doing good change management and taking the time to make these cases is to inspire confidence enough in people to follow and take those risks. I got to speed here to the close. Now, let's go get this. So to manage change, you have to ensure that, all that stuff we said that still have to be taken care of. I know that may be daunting. I understand, but that's the price of leadership. You got to handle that. Don't talk about why the data system doesn't work and the copy machine doesn't work and we don't have all the materials. I can remember driving down to the warehouse to get the materials and coming back. I can remember having my kids on campus moving furniture. This is the price of leadership. You got to just handle that. And then you have to listen to people. I have probably ticked off everybody in Oakland. I have said something that has people, good friends for a lifetime are tired of hearing me. Oh, here comes Kareem. I know he's going to say something that I'm doing. Hey, it is what it is. But what they don't realize is those dissonant voices are the very ones that they need to hear, because they are probably tipping you off to something that everybody else is thinking but doesn't have the courage to say. And if you try to win them over, you will necessarily have to make the right cases. You need those dissonant voices. Find them, listen to them, try to understand them, and then win them over. I'm thankful to Tom Sliggins. Oh, I shouldn't have said this. I'm thankful to Tom, who broke it down to me. And so because of that voice, I was able to help serve kids better. Because if you don't have the vision and the why together, it's just going to be confusion and resistance, and that's not helping or serving anybody. Okay. You also have to understand your team. That grid, that matrix, those quadrants, that's just the beginning of understanding them. You really have to know what makes them tick, reasonably so. Everybody's different. How do you win them over? So change management isn't just a cookie cutter approach. There's a technical stuff that you got to clean up. That's not rocket science. You didn't need to come here to know that the books need to be there, and that the PD needs to be accessible, and that the prep time needs to be, come on, we know that. It's these other things, but you have to understand your team to approach these other things. We got the must-haves. We know that if we don't have these, I heard these in the rooms. People talked about this being common, anxiety, false starts, and frustration, and all of these things. But I'm gonna put this on you. So if you want something to last, literacy especially, we have to become long form. Remember I said the shorthand and the long hand? We have to become long form leaders and move beyond the buzzwords: equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love it, but it's getting kind of buzzy. It's getting kind of buzzy. I'm just gonna name it. I know people may not like to hear that. Social justice, I get it. I get it. But we have to move beyond the ideas and the concepts and the buzzwords. If you're gonna be a change leader, you're gonna have to, if you wanna avoid this, if you wanna avoid these temporary gains, these swoons, we have to be able to go after the long form things, the unseen stuff that truly will liberate our children, the long form work. What do you mean long form? You got to make the case they need to hear. Here's an example, and I won't, so here are 3 different examples. One is a juvenile prison, a youth prison in Scotland. Another is an African-American young man, about 45 years old. We're in steady communication, him and some other inmates down in, what's the name of that prison? Pelican Bay. And then this is the young man I mentioned in the plenary. You got to be able to, if I'm talking to my mother, I'm going to the lower right-hand corner, because he reminds her of me and my brother, he does. He's about our age, looks better, younger, no gray hairs. But if I'm talking to him, I was in a professional development in a district recently in Colorado. And I showed this one here on the left, lower left-hand corner. There wasn't a dry in the place. They related, they understood, they saw their son. And then I'll play you this one. Let me just play this quickly. That's me and my baby, 25 years old.
Larry, say what's up to the camera.
Continuing Fall's dyslexia season now
Larry,
with
take it
dyslexia.
from the top. What does that say?
Larry, 1, 2, the cat.
My man Larry. I'm gonna say this right now on tape. My man Larry just read his first sentence by himself, and I'm very, very proud of him. And whoever sees this videotape, I'm hoping I can get his mother to see it too. I want them to know that Larry can read. And Larry will read, won't you?
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Now, we're going to do this every day till we get it down. And by the time you leave my class, you're going to be reading, my man. Or else you won't leave my class. Right?
You got the homework.
Yeah, these are the homeworks. These are the words that to go home and write the definitions for. Larry, I just got 6 students. Well, 4 in the gifted program and 2 more. Now, my man Larry here, when he was in 1st grade, Larry tested in the gifted and talented program. That's right. But something has happened between then and now. But whatever has happened, Larry, we're going to fix it. Uh-huh. We're going to fix it. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's right. Right on.
Now, I share that. It shook me. I didn't remember that. It's almost a long time ago. I am convinced the message has to be for the right audience. There's some people who will see that and it will do nothing. There's some people who see that and the hairs on the back of their neck stands up. And each of these is like that. I could play the other one, the one in Paulmont Prison, you know, to hear white young men talking about how they're, you know, armed robbers and this and that, and then half of them end up being dyslexic. It's stunning. And for some folks, that's what they need. And as change managers, we have to figure out what people need, not to be cynical, but that's just common sense. If you need to hear it in English and I'm saying it in Spanish, that's not gonna work. And it's the same thing with change management. If you need an institutional case, but I'm steadily making a moral case, is gonna be a disconnect.
Kareem,
So-
we need to start transitioning towards question and answer time, if that's okay with you.
All right, well, let me take this last 20 seconds to just play this out loud here. So here's the frame. You must be willing and able to do these things that develop and maintain these things so that we can create a supportive environment that's aligned with our colleagues, that mitigate these feelings so that change can be made sustainably. That's what it's all about. And we need your help to do it. Okay. Now, Julia, you can give me the old Apollo stage hook.
Okay, I just posted a question in the chat that somebody had posted in Whova. It is, time or the lack of it seems to be a major factor and or oppressive tool in keeping voices of change from having any airtime at staff meetings, meetings at tier 2, etc. What are some times to gather momentum with such limited time within our workday?
I'm assuming that question is for me.
Yes.
So that person is asking, how can we make the time we needed to do the things we need to do?
And gather
Well,
momentum, they say.
To gather momentum and all that. So what's the alternative? To not do it? To skip it and hope it just works out? Like we got to get out of this scarcity mindset. What are the times? It depends on your context. You know, I, as a principal, had a budget and I used that budget creatively. You know, I would bring on 6 substitutes and their role was to sub in for a grade level in the day. And guess what you're gonna do this day, guys? And they knew this in advance. We're gonna go plan. Make the time, have those conversations, right? And you gotta respect people's time. You can offer them extended contract, but let's talk about the time that's on the books. This is not the Salvation Army, the Goodwill. We're not talking about altruism here. We're talking about being respectful of people's professionalism and their time and their family and their situation, saying we're going to structure this thing so that it works for you. That means creating a data and assessment calendar at the beginning of the year so everybody knows. Respecting time means that when you have observation, evaluations, all type of stuff, that they know going in what the expectations are, that you role play things ahead of time at the beginning of year in your professional development, that's actually part of it. So it makes things more efficient, it makes them more comfortable, and things can move forward on that basis. But it will be different in everybody's context. There are ways to do it. And if your system doesn't give you enough planning time, remember, you have a choice. You can choose to go along and not give them what they need, right? Or you can do something about it. That's your calling as a change manager. And they will watch what you do. They will watch that case that you make.
Thanks, Kareem. I got one more from the chat here. Erica from Oakland Public Library says, wouldn't it be most effective to include the quote dissident voices on the front end, helping you research the new program choices, and then once a collaborative decision was made, all of them would help you persuade others?
Yeah, in good faith. Yeah, in good faith it can be. But at the same time, listen, you have to lead. You have to lead. Yes, it is great to include dissident voices up front, but you should be in conversations all the time with those folks. But giving people, okay. So when I taught leadership development with new leaders, this is one of the things we talked about. Yes, it's great to give people, engagement is different than a platform. We don't need you blowing up the staff meeting to talk about the wonders of this. And no, we don't have time. But what we do have time for is to engage in good faith around concerns, thoughts, and questions. You got to structure it in a constructive way. You can't just turn over your professional development to somebody who is going against the initiative. No. It means being inclusive of their ideas up front, being respectful, engaging with them, giving them the opportunity to do their research, and then bring it back to you. Have a conversation with the leadership team about it. Let them present to the leadership team. Let them make the case there, and then you can engage in good faith.
Thanks, Kareem. We have time for another question. If anybody would like to raise their hand or unmute yourself, you can. I also wanted to let you know that I just posted an evaluation in the chat. If everybody doesn't mind just opening it now, you don't need to complete it now, but if you can complete it sometime today, that would be great. It's just a few questions about this workshop and this morning's plenary too, possibly. That might be a different one.
Julia, while that's happening, something tells me I need to show this again. So I'm gonna put it up. I don't know who needs it. This is for somebody. I don't know who it is. I don't know, but my spirit is telling me to show this. I'm gonna show this.
Okay, and after that, Rebecca Buckley has a question.
Sure, go ahead. You can read it.
Okay.
They have their hand raised. Go ahead, Rebecca. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted. And I just, I appreciate your perspectives on change management and the leadership skills that requires. And I wonder if you could just speak briefly to what a leader, practices that a leader needs to cultivate to maintain effectiveness in a leadership role. What are some of the sustaining and nourishing and nurturing practices that you, for example, cultivate in your own life to be able to maintain your edge and the energy that it requires to be in a leadership role?
Sure. So what I learned the hard way. I didn't do that as a teacher, and it cost me dearly. It cost me a family. And so I learned that I needed to do it differently, and it cost me some of my health. So as a principal, I did a few things. One, I put on, and probably the biggest thing was I put in guardrails. I did two in particular. One, every person in the house, let's say my son's birthday is May 30th. Every 30th of every month was Daddy's Sunday. My daughter's birthday is the 18th. Every 18th of every month is Daddy-Daughter Day. And what I had to come to understand as a leader is it wasn't that they had to have me around all the time, but they had to know when they was gonna get me. They had to know when they had my full attention and not half attention and thinking about this and doing this and that. No. On the 18th is Daddy-Daughter Day. And that may be doing art with her or watching a movie or going for a walk or whatever it is. But we're not having a meeting on that night. Understand? I had to. Now these are hard lessons learned. Now this is not something I learned in school. This is what I had to pick up because I had to survive. I didn't want to lose another family. Then the second thing. So I saw one day, President of the United States was an assistant coach for his daughter's basketball team. And I said, my God, if the president can do that. So I decided to coach my daughter's softball team. And best decision I ever made. Later on, I turned out she had that allowed her, it allowed our relationship to develop. It forced me. I had to be there. Them little kids waiting on you. You can't leave them at that park by themselves. You got to be there, coach. So I put something in place to force myself to be present with folks, with my family members. And that ended up being a lifeline. One of my kids had learning challenges, and her success with that allowed her the self-esteem to navigate the educational system that was eating her alive. So you can do things creatively to put yourself in a position to be present and successful and sustain yourself. And understand that it may not be a 20-year career. Give what you can give as long as you can give it. And be reasonable about it. But don't hold back to say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do the work the way it needs to be done because I can't sustain it. No, okay. You have to have enough faith to say, it's for a season and a reason. I'm going to give what I can, when I can, how I can, in love. And then somebody else might pick the baton up and take it further. You got to be humble enough to say that. In fact, good change managers are always training their replacement. Somebody else got to pick up that baton. And you cultivate their leadership along the way. So that's how I'd answer that question.
Thank you, Kareem. I want to give Kareem a big round of applause and just a big thank you. So I invite you to unmute yourself, say thank you to Kareem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kareem.
Thank you, Kareem.
Thank you.